Thank you.
Hi, folks. I have tea now. I had tea before I started the first time, but I completely forgot to drink it. Because once we got started, I was just like, try and say all the things. So
you did great.
That's very kind of you, Emmy. I can't believe I just said that to Jess, though. This is still on record, but I mean, what the hell, Jess? I'm so sorry. This is why I have so much to learn still on my path as a 500 Rising instructor.
No, I think it's beautiful because it did show that your like relationship with her was that. It was genuine. It was great.
It's the martial arts instructor into you. It's hard to get it out, isn't it?
Well, but I'm working on it. That needs to be like, because it was neither invitational nor curious.
But it was funny.
Oh, well, there is that at least. Alice is laughing because for once it wasn't her. Jess is and the thing is, I've had the theory before that it's something that Dan pointed out, that I do more to the karate instructors. But I mean, Jess isn't even a karate instructor, and I savaged her. Sorry, Jessica. I do love you, darling.
I know, I love you right back, Chica. That's all right. It's a good job I'm hard as fuck, innit? Then I can take this shit.
Absolutely. Okay. I would be very happy to take at this point. Were there any questions that you all had from the first part before I push forwards? Because obviously, as ever, we're slightly tight on time. So there were some really, really good questions from the group that have gone about local safeguarding. This one of those things is like self-defense law. Safeguarding varies so much from location to location. So you in your own particular area, and in the UK that varies like locally from county to county. But you must, in your own area, you have to know what the systems are when you're dealing with children. And there are certain, generally, if you're not sure, then going to ask the police, what should you, as a teacher, what are your safeguarding responsibilities, and where would you refer students on? It might be from within the institution where you came across it. If you've been invited into a school, there will be a safeguarding lead there. But if you're teaching in the community, then it's slightly different. And it's really, really important that you're aware of how to report those. And there is just not a generic one fits all. And I'm sure that's probably in the States as well. I don't know what the systems are for that. And those of you who teach kids in the States, what would be the norm in terms of if you had a safeguarding concern, how would you report that?
So I'm lucky enough to work with a bunch of law enforcement. So they're my go-to people. And then I will look for not just local law enforcement, but then what do we have for child advocacy folks in the community? So I've got a few resources that I have just collected over the years that I, depending on the situation, go to.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It does seem to be, and again, that's great because you have those resources, but a lot of people don't, and they wouldn't necessarily know where to look. So for those of you who don't necessarily, then I would say your most important thing with safeguarding is to make sure that you record at the time exactly what your concerns were, and that you record it in writing in a way that's documentable. And then if you are taking that to police, they would then perhaps be able to direct you to another agency. Here we have a really, really good system, which is called the MASH. It's the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, where all the agencies feed in together. You can make a report to the MASH, and that they will then, they deal with it. They don't feed back to you because it's confidential, but they do take action on it. Sometimes you can see that that's happened to me multiple times over the last 20 years or so. And yeah, you can see that action has been taken, even if you have not then been involved once it's been passed on. But when dealing with, any children over time, you will have situations in which you need an authority beyond yourself. Otherwise, there could be very severe consequences for the student. Right. So we're going back into our PowerPoint, which is now here. Okay. So this section is really thinking about what do I use that's 500 Rising material with this age group? How do I adapt it? What do I use that's not 500 Rising material, and why have I chosen to include that in working with teen girls? So those of you who are, hang on a second, let me just take the chat away so I can see people. And then, okay. So if we're thinking about content of teen classes, as ever, when we're thinking about workshop design, as we do on our L1, L2, it depends how long we have her for. What do we teach her? So I have a format for teen girls, which is very much based around a 2-3 hour thing. If I only have her for that amount of time, we'll very often do the awareness game, because having them run around with beanbags and that kind of thing does multiple things in terms of building confidence in their abilities to observe, as well as being a good icebreaker and getting them active and all of those good things. I would very often get them to do the risk assessment exercises in groups because it's so pertinent to them. Or a similar exercise where I get them to talk about what safety habits do you have, because they will find on reflection that they have multiple safety habits already. So again, from strength to strength, we're looking at, oh, I already do all of these things, which are really good for protecting me. I've survived this long, so actually I have so many good safety habits already. And then we are looking at what have we got and how can we make that even better. And we know that articulating these things already anchors them and makes them stronger. So in terms of building confidence for them, articulating those things is really good. Blink is a drill that I really like to do with them, which is again about building confidence in themselves. It's the so Rich Dimitri one where they have one of them will hold a position and the other one will close their eyes, open and shut their eyes, and then they'll recount as many things as they can remember about the person's position. So they do it at close range, super simple, doesn't require any equipment. And within 2 or 3 goes, they are absolutely bossing it in terms of, can I see all 10 digits? Which is the major threat of the hand? Where are my escape routes? What did I read in their face? Where was their weight distribution, forward or back? Just the number of details that they can remember from a half-second open shut is incredible. And then you teach them, so you do this every time you get on the bus and you decide where to sit. You've done that scenario read. Every time you walk into a cafe and you choose a table to sit down, you've done that scenario read. And then we're really making sure that we are articulating the factors that they already have in them to make really, really good decisions. And so these are super fun drills to do. And it all builds on their natural instincts, but then being able to make sure that they're building on those natural instincts articulately and mindfully, so that they're even safer than they already were. We do lots of one step with now that can get like Anchi was talking about, sometimes if you are new to a group and they all know each other, then active management of that room without alienating them can become a little bit challenging. When you are teaching in schools, for example, I always like to always have member of staff from the school in the room at all times, because partly for safeguarding, but also in terms of room management, because they know the students better than you do. And sometimes, and again, in my experience as a substitute teacher, as a supply teacher, when you don't have anybody else in there, a room full of teenagers can be a very, very hostile environment if you're asking them to do stuff they don't want to do. So my number one thing then is the buy-in. They really need to want to do what you're going to do. So we're selling the benefits, we're getting that buy-in. We won't be able to do this drill unless everybody's listening. It's really, really important for safety that I have all of your attention now. And then how we're managing the room, bringing them all in, speaking to them really, really quietly, will bring the energy down really nicely to help then make it a little bit more intimate and just help to manage the energy in the room. When you do a big drill like the awareness drill, you're going to need to allow some time to get them to resettle. And, you know, with that kind of thing, using your rate, tone, pitch and volume, as we learned in level 1, is incredibly important for orchestrating the movement and energy, and then using the space that you've got, so bringing them into a smaller space, or how when you spread them out again, all of those things are key for that particular. Sorry, that was a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but just thinking in response to Anchi's question about how we're managing the room. Yes, so with one step, it's quite nice to do some of the variations because of the fun aspect. So getting them to do it as animals, for example, can go really well. I have had groups of teenagers where that's gone bananas. Some of you know about the time when I ended up with a pigeon versus, I don't know, an earthworm or something. And I was just like, not even, it was just so, I was like, I looked at it and I was like, what am I looking at here? And when they explained it, I was like, interesting. So when you were choosing combative animals, what was it that made you choose a pigeon? Because that was an interesting choice. And I feel like it slightly disadvantaged you in this particular interaction. But yeah, but these can be really good in terms of the value that you get, the side benefits that you get from their the way that they interact with each other, and the way that they know that they're having fun with you in a way that's very, very purposeful, because they understand this in terms of problem solving, and they understand it in terms of resilience. So all of those things, and then I like to do finish up, obviously, before I send them back to their maths lesson or whatever, with a rip and tear drill, which is the one that came from Tommy Joe Moore, where you have like a food bag over the focus pad. And for those of them that have been way too self-conscious, never met a Manchester pigeon, I can imagine. If they're really, really timid, and it's been hard for them to access their inner feistiness, then this drill where they get to smash and rip, this is a really good drill for allowing them to understand that they are perhaps more powerful, and they can access more of that primal force. And that can get very energetic and fun. But as I say, I would save that to the end, and then let their energy levels be somebody else's problem when you let them go on a short workshop. You could also do like the power gen stuff and the striking drills, or the stop hitting me drills, that kind of thing. Those work really well to end up having them feel really strong at the end of that kind of workshop, if it's a short one. I have talked about creating a 2-day workshop. So when I created a 2-day workshop, this was for the Indian instructor group. And so this is an example of how to adapt the 500 Rising material in particular circumstances, because language was a problem. So we needed to do quite a lot of physical stuff that had those side benefits, because my Hindi's not great. And I needed to be able to get the most that I could out of this. It was a group that I'd worked with a few times before over a course of a few years. And they are very much a group that proactively go in, even though they're very young instructors, they're teaching sexual assault defenses. They're very explicit in what they're doing, and they're very motivated. But they've their physical training is something that they haven't spent enough time with generally. So we looked just as an outline, awareness, weaponizing flinch responses is a good one to put in there. One-step variants again, but for them culturally in India, the animal ones and the different ones, that was slightly more problematic for them. But the very direct ones worked really well. Power gen, striking options, wrist grabs, chokes and strangles, hair, ground escapes, all of those things worked well. Yeah, as I said, their team were very motivated by getting more competent in their escapes, because that was the main thing that they themselves were trying to teach, and because the women that they were teaching were much more vulnerable to needing escapes in an unsupportive outdoor area. And then if you had longer sessions with, so sometimes you'll get invited to teach, come back on a couple of days, or to do more extensive stuff. I mean, I know everybody in this group I know has had experience of this kind of thing. So I feel a little bit like I'm teaching my grandmother to suck eggs, but some of the things that I have found to work, the risk assessment drill every time, and safety habits really, really helps them to think about how it's relevant to them, and you get buy-in very early on. which is helpful for group management. The blink drill works well, the one that I talked about just now. Awareness games, and then all sorts of different layers with that. The sillier ones that we had in L2, where you have to sing happy birthday or any of those kind of things, perfect for this age group, absolutely perfect. Framing one step as Twister is often good for making sure that it stays fun, and that helps them to understand that they're still looking for solutions from very compromised positions. All of the boundary work. Now, so if I have them for longer, then I'll often do Randy's boundary setting stuff. I've got a teenage version of Randy's boundary setting workshop that he's done, and I think is available for free. So if you haven't done it, definitely do it, because it's awesome. I turned it into like a worksheet for teenagers. So it helps them identify what they're and they love it. They love it. It's like a quiz in a girls' magazine. Like my 9-year-old stepdaughter will go and buy a magazine just so she can do the "what kind of best friend are you" quiz. It works like that. And where are your boundaries week quiz. It's brilliant. I mean, I love it, but teenagers particularly love it. And it's a really, really comprehensive look at, financial boundaries and time boundaries, all the different categorizations of boundaries, and sets it up so that they can understand where are they vulnerable. And then scripting is not just identifying what the problem is, but then scripting, how would you deal with this? And then putting it into little scenarios for them. In terms of scenarios, you don't have to get them to become like Oscar-winning actors. A great thing that I learned when working with Joe Saunders was a tabletop boundary setting, where they often don't need to act out whatever it is, but they kind of war game it, and that works really well for those who are maybe too self-conscious to leap about pretending that they're on public transport or whatever. Is that they can get a lot from discussing it. So this fortune teller that I talked about before, if you work with a group and you want some randomizing, you can do it on cards, but you can make a little fortune teller. And this one has got, locations, car park, bus stop, party, playground. And then in your next layer, you've got stranger being threatened or your friend being threatened. You've got a repeated issue or a pre-escalated person. Is it your fault? That can be a thing. There's more than one person. Are they older? Are they smaller? And then you've got dependents with you. Maybe you're out with your little brother or sister. There's a weapon involved. The weather's really horrendous or not. And there's a time pressure. So just having fun ways of randomizing the scenario allows you to build it. So sometimes if there's a group that you want to work with, there's so many different ways that you can do that. But this is just, one little way that they enjoy. And the enjoyment is not to be overlooked. The enjoyment is how you're going to get that connection, which is really important for this age group. You have to find ways of making it fun. Fun is compulsory, and you can't force it. You have to build it patiently. Power Gen for mindset, risk releases, making sure that we're drawing out then those links between risk releases and boundary setting so that we're linking all of it together. The hair grabs, they, particularly teenagers, respond because, it's not to be overlooked that teenagers live in a much more physical environment than we do. Well, most of us do. I'm thinking about Emmy's living in a very physical environment, but most adults do not line up in a corridor or get squished in classrooms. They're constantly much too close, uncomfortably close to each other. They have to sit down next to each other in assembly, and they're constantly having to sit with. And this is a thing, like as a secondary school supply teacher, we are constantly deliberately making people sit next to people they don't like. That is a daily occurrence. I am uncomfortable because I, the good student, am being made to sit next to him, the bad student, and he will take my stuff and be in my space and all of these things. And I have to put up with that because otherwise I'm going to be in trouble. This is a reality for teenagers the entire time. So their physical world is really different to ours. It's very, very, it's much more tactile. And setting boundaries with their friends is way more complicated as a result. So yeah, hair grabs go down well. Chokes and strangles really, really important. Chillingly, those of you who were on the November workshop will know that we've now started to get more and more teenage girls coming to us saying, I need solutions for strangulation, because we're seeing a lot of non-fatal strangulation in porn, and my boyfriend is doing this to me, and I'm worried about it. And this was another really good example of working with an institution that we can trust, because we have a long-standing relationship with them. And when their 15-year-old girls said at the beginning of the workshop, when we were asking, what else would you like us to cover today? And they brought this up, and their teacher was alarmed that it was coming from the group, that it was something that they were articulating as a need. But she was like, I will deal with it. If we get pushback from the parents, I will deal with it. And then so we kind of sacked off the content of the workshop, and we taught strangulation defenses, because it was what the students themselves were looking for. And we talked about the, we contextualized that for them as well. But those kids are only 15 years old. And it's just another example of what kids, there's the belief amongst teen boys that it's normal for girls to cry during sex. It's a very, very widespread belief. The violence that they see and most of their sexual education is coming from pornography. And this is the reality that is, and there's, I've had students as young as 13 that are in all sorts of very dangerous sexual relationships because it gains them status within their peer group. And these students are at risk. And the more that we can educate them around those risks, the more we give them paths and power. So knife defenses, I have got some stuff on knife defenses, which we can do a little bit of. We may get to that, we may not. But certainly when you're working with this age group, knife mitigation in the UK is an important thing because it is a risk for them. I know some of you already teach that. You don't need some complex drills, you need some really simple drills. But for this age group, some of the best work that we do with this is around awareness and particularly observation. So, somebody tapping their pocket, somebody looking around, somebody whose clothes are inappropriate for the weather, or you're looking for that printing or any of those, concealing. There's the number of different signs that somebody might be carrying a knife, a cluster of behaviors. Teenage boys are getting sexual education from watching. Yes, indeed. Yes, that is true. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that depending on the area, then defense against a weapon can also be an important thing to include if you have them for a longer period of time. Articulation and narrative exercises are more important for teens than for anyone else. So, because they're going to have to account for their behavior and their responses to the school in most situations, instead of just to the police. And schools, certainly in the UK, operate a separate legal system where if you defend yourself, you get punished for it. So even if it's a clear-cut case of self-defense. And a lot of the time, students just put up with it. So this is something I encourage them not to do. I encourage them, to be very clear and articulate about why they had to defend themselves when they had to defend themselves in a school environment. But any kind of physical self-defense will result in punishment for both students in most cases, which is a pretty sad state of affairs. Narrative exercises for teens. Yeah. So, okay, well, I'll come back to that if we can. It's One thing that works, if we look at, so we've had a scenario, and then we can think about, like we do with the articulation exercise. Would you remember the one with the kid in the side of the swimming pool and that kind of thing? So understanding how we might, what would be the important details to include if we were talking to a teacher. What key words is a teacher listening for example, and that kind of thing. So we're really thinking about context, just like we do in our aftermath stuff. And we're thinking about what do we talk about to like ourselves, to medical professionals, to use slight. So there's a specific thing about understanding the chain of the institution that you're in, as you well know. So we think about what are the key words that we would need to ensure that our students are able to articulate in order for them to be able to be not in trouble for taking the right action for what they need to do, for example. And no problem. And again, as we talked about in the first half, part of this is understanding, choosing the right adult to talk to and making sure that you have like done that as effectively as you can. And I have students and I say to them, and what if you think that didn't really land? Then they're like, you tell them again, or you find a different adult. I'm like, yes, that's right. And then making sure, engaging the parents as well, if that's appropriate, if the child can do that with that particular parent. Okay, so articulation and narrative exercises. So and listening and diamond questioning. So the thing that we have in L2, where we have the open and closed questions, this is a really good exercise to teach to teenagers, but also to use with teenagers if they are reluctant. If something bad has happened to a teen, they very often won't articulate it. But sometimes they really want to, but they find it very difficult to do that. So our open and closed questions is a really good framework for teenagers if they want to share something, but they haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. Ever since L2, I've used that technique quite successfully a lot of the time. And it definitely it does pay off. So scenario training, good to do it as tabletop work, can be in small groups. Controlling the role play aspects can be unsuitable. Some classes don't like doing it at all. Some of them get way too carried away. So again, managing the room is crucial with this one. Really helpful to ask students to bring in situations that they have seen or heard, and then to tinker with the options for putting those into context. So this is where it really, really does make a difference if they themselves from their groups have brought up things that they would like help with, instead of us saying, this is a thing that is happening to you and I will tell you how to deal with it. So again, agency all the time. And then I've just talked about the same with the fortune teller, setting up a random scenario and allowing them to input into that. It's a playful way of helping them be flexible in their thinking. So I really like scanning for useful sort of memes. This is another really nice one, which is helping them, scripting them for, helping them script their boundaries, which is, as we talked about before, a really, really key thing. So I can't do that, but I can help you find someone who can. I appreciate the gesture, but in future I would prefer. I can't take on additional responsibilities right now. I'm not comfortable discussing this topic with you. I'm uncomfortable with what you just said or did. Thank you for your concern, but I can handle this. I can't attend, but I appreciate the invitation. I don't give you permission to do X, Y, or Z. Yes, of course I can, Emmy, for sure. I can't do this, but I'm open to trying. I don't feel safe, so I'm going to leave. I won't be spoken to in that manner. I'm allowed to change my mind. Thanks, but I'm not interested. I wish I could, but I can't. No, thank you. And no, as lovely to come back to, no is a complete sentence. However, in the reality of the teenage world, their powerful adults will often ride roughshod over these. So another really valuable thing that we do as a group is, what do you do when you are not being, when your no is not being accepted? What do we do when you say, I don't feel safe, so I'm going to leave? Well, how are we going to leave? What plans do we have in place for when that date goes really badly wrong. So we talk about mitigation with a lot of these things. We talk about the fact that your parents would rather get that phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning to say you lied, you're not at your friend's, you went to a party, you've had something to drink, you've had a row, and you're really scared and you need to be picked up from 10 miles away. Your parents would rather have that call. And then we talk about, so you want to go out in those awesome high heels, those are fantastic, but maybe we're going to take a pair of shoes in the handbag as well. Because those are going to be really uncomfortable come 10 o'clock in the evening. There's just lots of ways we go, okay, well, this is best case scenario, but what does plan B look like? Because of the power structures around teenagers mean that their boundaries are very, very often ignored. And sometimes we are in endure for a lot of this. We don't have good solutions. If they've got a very difficult family situation or whatever, then we're really a lot of the time thinking about what can we do to help this particular child tolerate this situation, and what can we help them to look for in terms of medium to longer term solutions. So yeah, I really like these boundary setting sentences, but I think that not all of them are accessible for teenagers. And some of them then can produce useful discussions in why not, and then how can we adapt, what other options might we have for those teens in that situation, because we can't, we can't make them more powerful in that way, because they don't have their own home, they don't have their own bank account, they don't have the capacity to change those things. Oh, go back. Okay, yeah, I talked about knife risk as well, which I think we don't necessarily have to go into a lot of these. This is, again, more the UK-based situation. I can share these subsequently if people want to, but it might be more useful to have conversations around the hows and the whys that people might have in the group of teaching teenagers, because we're still relatively good for time. And I think that might be more valuable to people if you do have questions. I feel that might be better, or I can go into some of the earlier stuff in a little bit more depth if you would like. Feel free to unmute and jump in if you have questions or experiences that you want to share with that.
Mary, I have a question.
Yes.
A lot of the stuff you talked about for class design and what drills to do was when you're teaching a workshop that is, the whole workshop is about teenage girls, or it's for teenage girls.
Mm-hmm.
How do you adapt this? Because you said some of these were quite important when you have a group that is mostly adults, but then you have a few teenagers in there as well.
That's a really useful question. It definitely comes up. Sometimes it comes up because you have a mum will bring her teenage students to your workshop. I think quite a few of us have had that situation. And that can be really good, but it also can be a little bit restricting on the teens. And for me, that's another big kind of read the room one, in that sometimes the teens want to be separated for group work from their adult, so that they can be a little bit more free in what they're saying. But sometimes they don't have the confidence to do that if there's a lot of other adults around. So I think in the initial part of when you've got more like whole class exercises, I would be very much like making an assessment of how those young people are managing in the group of older people, whether they're connecting with each other, and as to how then I move that forward. So going forward in the group, would I leave them with the adults that they know, or would I put them into put the younger? Sometimes I've had it where, okay, well, this mixed group then lends itself really nicely to having different demographics in the group work. Even if those people don't know each other ahead of time, their life experiences feed well into the group work if they're confident enough to be separated from the people that they came with. So having more like whole group activities in the beginning to help them get settled, and then if I read that they feel confident enough to be separated out, then I might put them into like those demographics for specific things like risk assessment or personal safety habits or that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Mary,
Yeah.
can you just put the last 3 slides you've just put on, because about the knife stuff, because I just want to have I'm just taking a photograph of it. I just want to have a read after.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can do. Let me just back up to that.
Back it up, sister.
Yes, exactly. There we go.
It was just the last 3 where you.
Yeah, I wish to, as I say, I'm happy to. These are all when my students bizarrely really enjoy going through these because they like it as like a memory test of, oh, what's the other different way. I think as humans, most of us are naturally interested in observational psychology. They love playing like you set up a scenario, somebody leaves the room, and then we're all on a bus, and then they just have to do a 2-second read of the room and that kind of thing. And so some of the weapons work fits really nicely into that. Or you do the 7-second thing where like if I blow a whistle at any point during the class, everybody's got 7 seconds to find something to grab and defend themselves, whether it's a chair or a bag or anything like that. Or if they just see me pull out, a fake knife or a piece of chalk or something, then they have to react very quickly. Those are good random drills that you would have, but that would be for a more established group. It's not something you would necessarily do first off, because again, the room management, they can get very, very overexcited very quickly. So having those dynamics to bring back in again can be quite challenging. Yeah. So
the reason why I'm just wanting to take a sort of memory of those 3 shots, slides about knives, is because the Manchester knifing in the synagogue a couple of months ago. Well, a lot of my students in the Manchester area, their families were there. So every lesson, it's like, what about knives? What about knives? They're absolutely obsessed with it because it's front and center for them. So I'm wanting to, do some knife work with them. I have done already, but they want more. So it's about balancing it with obviously the other stuff that we teach and keeping some knife stuff relevant, because it's what they want at the moment, because they're all very scared.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, it's the same. I make all my teenagers do it because it's one of the biggest risks to them, particularly those that are moving around the city. So,
so got that one.
Yeah, you got that one. So,
okay. Yeah, got that one.
Okay.
Oh, that's going to need zooming in. Super. Thanks, lovely.
You're very welcome. Yeah. Did that stuff. Okay. Yeah. So and again, that's very much like for folks in the US, knife crime is not as much of a thing for your teenage students. It is here in the UK, not so much in
it is actually. It's on the uprise. Knife attacks in general are rising like crazy. I have read too many criminal complaints involving family members assaulting each other with just kitchen knives.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, here in the UK, it's almost always kitchen knives. In terms of domestic violence, of course, it's what's to hand. So the key things that I teach are certainly in terms of out and about, these signs of recognizing, early recognition, what to do, sourcing something to put between yourself and a knife if your escape options are not a thing. Then they have to do, if somebody's about to draw a weapon, then a drill where they have to like pin to then strike and escape. There's none of them. There's there's no John Wick. There's no disarm. There's never anything, nothing that's unrealistic in that way. Like deflecting a knife hand, all of these things about how do you do enough to generate the opportunity to escape. And teens, again, they like the system. They understand that they have to do enough to make sure that the perpetrator does not have the motivation or the ability to come after them. And then they can escape. Once they've escaped, I use Tommy Joe Moore's backwards, forwards thing, making sure that you've definitely neutralized the threat before you turned your back. And they do it like backwards, forwards. They're happy with it. They're not going, oh my God, somebody's trying to slash me to death. They're like, this is how we playing, this particular thing. And then they always have to pat down. We have a version of the Macarena that we use that's for doing a pat down, and you have to check your palms at the end of it, because obviously they can get, so they have like a knife a knife first aid Macarena that always finishes that particular drill, which they do when they get to the designated safe space. So it's a really simple way of practicing that kind of important thing. But for our teens, having an awareness of those things and some education around it means that they're significantly less at risk just by knowing those things.
Can you take advantage of the startle flinch response against the perpetrator in some cases? For instance, if they have like a water bottle in their hand, knife attack, throw it at the attacker. The attacker is going to probably flinch, right? Buys a couple seconds.
It's one of the, yeah, certainly. So when we do, you have basically there's the 7-second drill, which is like, if they see me pull out a knife, which can happen in the middle of doing anything, then they have 7 seconds to source an incidental weapon. And then we evaluate. One of the things they most enjoy is I'll give them a mark out of 10 for whatever they picked up. Because and then if they say, well, I can throw this at you, or I can do this, I can do that, then it will be and we can talk about the difference. So again, in terms of is this a chair, again coming back to all of the L1 stuff, all of that good stuff, and affordances, then it makes them consider the affordances in the room in a way that is really good for their thinking, and again just really, really fun. But it is absolute chaos to start. They absolutely love it, and they will. So they're not thinking, oh my god, this is a terrorist attack, how am I saving my life? They're thinking, this is the most fun we've had all week. And you do need to kind of work to get a lid on it at times. Yeah, it's absolutely play. I
do a really good drill with them about we're weaponizing their environment. So I say, you're all used to your home, you're all used to your car, you're all used to your workplace, you're all used to the places that you go to socialize. Have a look at them through a different pair of eyes. And I just send them off, like if we're in a church hall or a community centre or wherever. I just say, right, all of you just go, you've got 2 minutes, bring me back 2 things, whatever they are, just bring them back. And then we'll look at how we can weaponize them. And they get very creative, really creative. Like one woman came back and she had this like oval silver tray and a book. And she was like, I grabbed these. I'm sorry, I didn't know what else to do with them. I was like, dude, that's okay. We can work with that. And when I started talking about, like, what would you do this? How could you hold it? Where would you aim it? You can just see them going, oh my God, this is brilliant. I never even looked at a book like that before. Do you know what I mean? And it's really good. And now when they come back to the class the week after, they're like, so I went into my bathroom and I weaponized everything in it. And it's really good because it makes them feel more confident in the workplace and in their home. And that's a really good drill to do as well. I think they like that a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of them. Again, when I talk about the privilege of working with teenagers, they're such creative thinkers, and they're really, really powerful people. You get, like, for me, teenagers and toddlers are very much the same in terms of development, is that they go through this massive power thing of I can do anything. And that's really good to be alongside. And then they sort of get out the other side of that, and they often kind of fall into, reality kind of reclaims them, and they actually realize that they can't. With teenagers, they want to change the world a lot of the time. And that's such phenomenal energy to work with. And I do find it's such a privilege to spend time with them and to channel some of that energy with them, and to help them understand how to recruit it and make it work really well for them in their own, like, safety and their personal development. And then one of the really phenomenal things that we can do when we're running workshops with these students is to empower them as leaders. So you have this very, very valuable knowledge. You understand. So we do relationship red flags. That's another really big one with this age group. So we'll get those relationship red flags in there. You are the expert in your peer group about gaslighting, about predators, about abusive relationships. You then know all of these things. How then do you address that in your peer group? And that it not only are they confident then in their ability themselves, but beyond that, in terms of being the change in their peer group as well as a friend. and like we talked about earlier, that the friends can be some of the most dangerous people in their life, but actually sometimes they're going to listen to their friends much more easily than they listen to their parents. And so, sorry, I've been talking for too long, clearly. We are just coming into the last part of this. So I would definitely like, if there are any further questions, but I am going to come and ask you to contribute a takeaway before we wrap this up. So are there any, sorry, questions about the content or anything that you feel that I should have covered that I have not covered?
I think the content's been brilliant. You've obviously put a lot of work into it, so thank you for that, Mrs. And my takeaway is, I would say, I like the fortune teller thing. I really like that, because that gives them autonomy about the situation that they want to then train in. You know, because I don't know, I'm sure you guys get this, but the what if brigade. Well, what if this happens? And what if this happens? And I'm like, everything has context. We can what if this till we're blue in the face, but everything needs context. And I think that gives it the boundaries of context that we need. Otherwise, you can whiffle waffle till you're blue in the face. But this kind of gives them a specific, you know, and it can be it's going to be random every time, isn't it?
Thank you, Jess.
I like that a lot. I'm going to pinch it.
No, I'll bring it up to Manchester. You can have the original one if you like. There
Cheers,
we go.
dude.
What I should have done, and I'm learning as I go, is of course frame this. Could I have your takeaways in maybe 2 sentences? It's been lovely to hear from Jessica.
So roughly translated as Jessica, shut up, let somebody else speak.
Was it a bit more invitational though, was it? I'm going to work my way down the line. Alice, do you have a takeaway for us?
So I've got 2. So my 2 would be what you were saying about the mysteries of the teenage brain, because that's obviously not only useful in like what we're going to teach them, but also in how they might receive it as well. And then also what you were saying about local safeguarding and things like that, because I mean, I've mainly taught in more of a university aspect and in other areas where I know there's been someone who's in charge of safeguarding. So it's just another important thing to consider.
Fab, thank you. Dan?
I'm going to cheat as well and do 2, which is how teenagers manipulate each other, even in normal social context, highlighting the effects of that. And then the teaching how to ask for help. That's a huge, that's great to have included that. So absolutely fantastic. Love those.
Oh, cool. Good. Caroline?
Lovely. I like the DeBecker's pins. Again, are you loan sharking your friends? And obviously, when you were going through the list of that, it was really interesting to see how many of those you kind of do unconsciously as a parent or as an karate instructor, as you know. So yeah, that's really interesting. I like that.
Thank you. Anche?
Very much. Now I know what I don't know. It's a bit of a gap in the demographic that we work with. So we've got we're working pretty much up until age 12. We've got like 3 13-year-old boys, and then start again with parents in their 40s. So as the kids grow into teenagers, that's something that I need to learn so much more about this now. And what you said about the school system and the school being a completely different legal system in itself, I want to find out so much more about that now, and I'm probably going to quiz at least the 3 boys that we're working with.
Cool, thank you. Kimberly?
Hi, everybody. It's nice to meet you all. I think really the insight into the teenage mind in general and the development. I work with, our classes are, 13 and up for adult classes. I teach a women's Krav Maga class, which starts at 13. I often will get girls that are even 12 and 11 if they're kind of bigger and they're kind of a little too big to be in the children's classes a little bit, size-wise, maturity-wise. So just helping me understand. And that's kind of a big range, you know, from 13 on up to even an 18 or 19-year-old. So I really appreciate that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sarah M.
I really like the idea of using small groups to let them drive the training and let them dictate what they're learning about. Really good.
Oh, thank you. Cool. Sarah B.
Just two things. Okay.
Well, it's supposed to be one thing, but you know.
Well, I've been teaching kids a long time, and that you reinvigorated me, because it made me look at the stuff I do and made me think, oh, I can't wait to get at them on Monday. But also it just reminded me of we've got a lot of work to do. Before I give you my takeaway, I work this whole thing about safeguarding in schools. In UK, I suppose in a way we're lucky. We have rigorous stuff in place, so that from a self-defense coach point of view, it can be complex because I'm limited or have to be careful how and what I teach and the language we use. And I work a lot with behavior in governance, and I do very much do this thing where this is what you can do to defend yourself outside of the school gate, and this is what you can do inside of the school gate because of the consequences, just what Mary said. But my takeaway is we are always modeling consent, everything we do and everything we say. I think that is just that's it for me. Thank you.
Wonderful. Emmy.
2, fast. I love training with the humans that are in different countries. You guys bring warmth to my soul. The second thing about this training specifically, the conversation around how do you create trust in that training group with teenagers, not just amongst the kids themselves, but also with the adults in the space. And I would love to hear more about how that is created from the community, because I think that is a pivotal piece of how do we engage the groups that we're with, because you need trust to have these hard conversations.
Absolutely.
Thank you. You did awesome, Mary.
Cool. That's nice. Thank you. Lisa, last but not least.
Okay. Am I unmuted?
You are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So, covering brain was a really neat perspective on how you explained all that. I do work with teens. I'm in high school. They're my favorite demographics. Really enjoyed my glasses here. I liked what to do and what to cover and everything that you went through in your list of how to do all this stuff. It was very informative, especially working with the how to run through the scenarios and not have them individualized, like in their group with the markers in the paper, and just having them brainstorm would definitely have them speak out more with their peers. It was excellent presentation.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, it is now, I can't believe it. It's bang on 5 o'clock. So we actually came in on time. I can't believe it. Yeah. So yeah, somebody needs to let Tammy know that's important that we actually did that. That was, I have to say, a complete fluke. It's been a real privilege to have you all here. And I really do appreciate you giving up your time today. So thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing all of you, on the mats or in the virtual space during the next year or so. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for coming.
Mary, that was great.
Thanks, Mary. Awesome workshop.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.